The moment I opened my front door, my stomach dropped. My package was gone again. Not delayed, not misplaced, stolen. My blood boiled as I stared at the empty spot where my limited edition gaming headset was supposed to be. It was the fourth time in 2 months. 4. And just like before, I had a pretty good idea who was behind it. I turned my head slowly, squinting toward my neighbor's house. There she was, Karen, the human embodiment of an HOA complaint. She stood in her front yard, pruning her stupidly overpriced rose bushes like she wasn't the #1 suspect in my ongoing package heist mystery. I swear she smirked when she saw me staring. I clenched my fists. All right, I muttered to myself. That's it. I'm done playing nice. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the principle, the absolute audacity of this woman to act like she owned the entire neighborhood. She had already reported me 3 times for minor violations, like leaving my trash can out a few minutes too long, and yet she thought she could just swipe my stuff and get away with it? I marched back inside, grabbed my phone, and called Jake. Dude, it happened again. His laughter hit my ear immediately. No way. You mean your porch goblin neighbor struck again? Yes, I snapped. And I'm sick of it. Did you check the footage? I sighed, sinking into my couch. She's too smart for that. Every time, it's just out of frame. Either she knows where the camera is, or she's got some kind of package-stealing sixth sense. Karen, the criminal mastermind, Jake mused. All right, so what's the plan? Going to challenge her to a duel? Maybe set up some tripwire? Oh, what about a decoy box with like 1,000 crickets inside? Tempting, I admitted. But I need proof. Real, undeniable, caught in 4K proof. There was a brief silence before Jake said, "You know what that means, right?" I grinned. Oh, I know exactly what that means. Karen had messed with the wrong nerd. Later that night, I sat in my garage, staring at the half-finished plan on my laptop screen. The glitter bomb. The perfect mix of revenge, justice, and sheer, glorious humiliation. It had to be more than just a little puff of glitter. No, I needed something legendary. Something she would never live down. I started listing out components. The box needed a motion-triggered camera, so I could capture her expression in HD. The glitter had to be extra fine, the kind that sticks to your skin for weeks. And for the ultimate touch, a burst of bright pink dye, the kind hairstylists use when they want color to last. It took a few days of testing, but when I finally activated my prototype, I knew I had created a masterpiece. The moment the package was opened, a spring-loaded explosion would release a blinding cloud of glitter and dye into the air, coating everything within a 5-foot radius. Now, all I had to do was set the bait. Saturday morning, I placed the box outside, right where all my stolen packages had disappeared. I made sure it was labeled with something Karen couldn't resist: luxury electronics. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. From my window, I saw her. She didn't even hesitate. Karen, in her hideous leopard print yoga pants, strutted across her yard, glancing left and right like she thought she was in a spy movie. Then, with the grace of a raccoon in a trash can, she snatched the box, tucked it under her arm, and hurried back inside. My heart pounded with excitement. She took it. I whispered into my phone. On the other end, Jake gasped. No freaking way, dude. Get ready. I switched to the live camera feed inside the box, and the second Karen peeled back the tape, it happened. The explosion was beautiful. A thunderous puff filled her living room, showering her in an unholy storm of pink glitter and dye. The camera shook as she shrieked, flailing like a malfunctioning windmill. Her face, her hair, her clothes, all drenched in sparkly pink chaos. Jake and I were screaming with laughter, and then, as if on cue, her front door burst open, and she stumbled outside, coughing up clouds of glitter. I nearly fell off my chair. Karen looked like she had been dunked in a vat of cotton candy. Her scream of pure rage and humiliation echoed through the neighborhood. I saw her spot me watching from my window, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in Karen's eyes. She knew I had set her up. And then, like the cherry on top of a perfect revenge sundae, Karen turned and tried to shake the glitter off her arms. But she made one critical mistake. She did it in front of her own Ring camera. "Oh my God," Jake wheezed. "You caught her stealing her own downfall." I grinned. "Oh, I definitely did. And the best part? I was just getting started." I stared at my phone screen, replaying the footage over and over. Every time I watched Karen's expression shift from smug delight to pure, unfiltered horror, it made my soul happy. Jake had already re-watched it at least 20 times, wheezing with laughter on the other end of the call. "Dude," he managed between gasps. This is art. This is what the internet was made for." I grinned, my fingers itching to upload the footage. But I wasn't done yet. If I posted it now, Karen would deny everything. She'd play the victim, spin some ridiculous story, and somehow turn this into my fault. No, this had to be bigger, more undeniable, more catastrophic. Karen wasn't just a package thief. She was a serial thief. And I had a strong suspicion my missing deliveries weren't the only ones she had taken. If I was going to expose her, I needed to go all in. Jake cleared his throat, sensing the shift in my silence. "You're not satisfied, are you?" "Not even close," I admitted. "This is just phase 1. He chuckled. "All right, so what's phase 2? You going to deliver her a box full of live crickets? Or maybe something that screams at her when she opens it?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at my garage wall. "No," I said slowly. "I'm going to build something worse." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he groaned. "Oh no! No. I know that tone. That's your, I'm about to create something unholy tone. What are you thinking?" I turned to my workbench, my mind racing. "I'm thinking we upgrade the glitter bomb. Bigger, more intense, more devastating." Jake sucked in a sharp breath. "Dude, I don't know whether to be scared or impressed." "Both," I said simply. I spent the rest of the night sketching out plans. The first bomb had been a test run, but this time, I was going all out. The new box would be larger, designed to look even more valuable. Maybe something labeled Deluxe Tech Bundle. I'd rig it with multiple compartments, so the explosion would release in waves. First, an initial burst of extra fine glitter. So small, it would sink into every fabric fiber and stick to her for weeks. Then, the dye explosion. But this time, I was using UV-reactive dye. It would look normal under regular light, but under UV, she'd glow like a radioactive flamingo. And for the grand finale, a stench bomb. Not enough to be toxic, but enough to linger for days. A mix of rotten eggs and skunk essence, all sealed in a small delay-triggered canister. It took me 2 full days to build it, and by the time I was done, I stood back and admired my masterpiece. Jake came over to check it out, and just whistled. "Dude," he said, shaking his head, "you're a menace to society." I grinned. "Thanks." Now, it was time to set the trap. That morning, I placed the package on my doorstep again, right in Karen's usual window of opportunity. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist. The first time had humiliated her, but Karen, she was too prideful, too self-righteous. I watched from my window as she peeked out from her blinds, her pink-stained hair still bearing evidence of the last explosion. She hesitated for a moment, as if debating whether to risk it again, but greed won out. Within seconds, she was outside, glancing around before snatching up the box. I clenched my fists, heart pounding with excitement. "She took it," I whispered to Jake on the phone. "Here we go." He whispered back. The seconds crawled by. I switched to the live feed inside the box, watching as she carried it inside. The second she opened the lid, the first wave hit. A violent burst of glitter erupted in every direction, coating her arms, her face, her living room furniture. She screamed, but before she could react, boom. The dye exploded next, splattering UV-reactive blue and pink liquid all over her clothes. I nearly fell off my chair laughing. Karen stumbled backward, flailing, her voice rising in an incomprehensible shriek. She waved her hands frantically, but the real horror hadn't even begun. I knew the stench bomb was about to activate. 3, 2, 1. Her scream reached new levels of suffering as the air filled with an unbearable stench. The camera shook as she gagged, hands clamping over her nose. She staggered out of the room, retching. Jake was dying of laughter in my ear. "Dude, she can't escape it." I wheezed. "I know." Karen bolted outside, gasping for fresh air. And that was when the neighborhood saw her, covered in blue and pink dye, reeking like a skunk and still speckled with glitter. She looked like she had lost a battle with an exploding rainbow. The HOA president, a nosy guy named Steve, happened to be watering his lawn across the street. He turned, took one look at her, and immediately recoiled. "Karen," he said, clearly confused. "What? It's him!" she screeched, spinning toward my house, her eyes wild. "He's doing this to me." Steve frowned. "What exactly is this, Karen?" She waved her arms, still completely unaware of the live camera footage recording every second. His sabotaging me. His leaving packages full of traps." Steve blinked. "Karen, are you saying you stole another package?" Karen froze. For the first time, I saw a realization dawn on her face. She had just admitted to the crime, out loud. My grin widened as I stepped out onto my porch. "Oh, hey, Karen. Something wrong?" Her head snapped toward me, and if looks could kill, I would have been reduced to dust. "You," she seethed, taking a step forward. I held up my phone, showing the live footage playing on my screen. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Her face drained of color. Steve glanced between us, putting the pieces together. His jaw tightened. "Karen," he said slowly, "you've been stealing packages." Karen spluttered, panicked, reaching for an excuse. "I know because that's a federal crime," Steve continued, his voice suddenly sharp. "And considering we've had multiple complaints about missing packages in the neighborhood." Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She was cornered. Jake was still on the phone, whispering, "Bro, this is better than TV." I smirked. "Oh, it's just getting started." Karen had no idea the full footage was already being uploaded. By the time she figured it out, it would be too late. Karen stood frozen in her driveway, covered in pink and blue dye, speckled with glitter, and reeking of the unmistakable stench of skunk spray. The entire neighborhood was watching. Steve, the HOA president, had his arms crossed, waiting for an explanation, while a few other neighbors had stepped outside, lured by the commotion. I leaned against my door frame, phone in hand, still streaming the footage of her theft on my screen. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She knew she was trapped. If she admitted to stealing my package, she was confessing to theft. If she denied it, the footage was right there, proving she was lying. She was stuck, and I could see the gears in her head desperately turning as she searched for an escape. Steve sighed, rubbing his temples. "Karen, I really hope you have a good explanation for this." Karen let out a short, nervous laugh, her face twitching. I was just..." She suddenly pointed a shaking finger at me. "He's been setting me up. He put that package out there on purpose to humiliate me." Steve raised an eyebrow. "So you're admitting that you took it?" Karen's expression flickered with panic. "No. I mean, yes, but only because I was trying to protect the neighborhood. I thought it was suspicious, so I took it inside to investigate. I nearly burst out laughing at the sheer desperation in her voice. The woman had just accused me of setting a trap, and now she was pretending to be some kind of package vigilante. The smell of her lie was almost as strong as the stench bomb clinging to her. Steve looked at me, then at her, then at my phone. Protect the neighborhood? Really? Because from what I'm seeing, this looks a lot more like you stealing someone else's package and getting exactly what you deserved. Karen's jaw clenched so tightly that I swore I could hear her teeth grinding. She stomped her foot like a tantruming child. It's harassment. He's been targeting me. That thing was a health hazard. I could have been seriously hurt. I folded my arms, tilting my head. You mean, like all the other packages you stole? Were those also health hazards? She turned red. Well, red beneath the splotches of blue and pink coating her skin. You can't prove anything. I smirked and turned my phone around so she could see the recording playing. Really? 'Cause it kind of looks like I can. She gasped. Turn that off. Steve exhaled loudly and shook his head. Karen, you're in enough trouble as it is. The fact that you're even trying to flip this around is ridiculous. Just own up to it. Karen whipped around to face him, her eyes bulging with fury. Oh, don't act like you're on his side, Steve. You and I both know that I am the only one in this neighborhood who actually cares about maintaining order. Steve gave her a flat look. Karen, maintaining order does not mean stealing people's packages. Her hands clenched into fists. This is a conspiracy. You're all out to get me. At that moment, her husband, Richard, stepped out of the house. Unlike Karen, who was always ready to start a war over a blade of grass growing an inch too high, Richard mostly kept to himself. But right now, he looked exhausted, like this was the last thing he wanted to deal with. He took one look at his wife, covered in dye, glitter, and rage, and let out a slow sigh. Karen, he said, rubbing his forehead. What did you do this time? Karen turned on him instantly. What did I do? You should be asking what he did. She jabbed a finger toward me again. He's been tormenting me, Richard. He left this booby-trap package outside just to humiliate me. Richard blinked, looked at the scene, then looked at me. I held up my phone again, letting him see the footage of Karen sneaking onto my porch and stealing the box. His face barely changed. He just let out another tired sigh and turned back to his wife. Karen, he said flatly, you stole the package. I did not. You did. I was investigating. Karen, he said again, voice now tinged with deep exhaustion. Stop. Karen's lips clamped shut, her nostrils flaring. She was about 2 seconds away from either bursting into tears or attempting to claw my face off. Steve, sensing that this was getting nowhere, finally said, All right, here's what's going to happen. Karen, you're going to clean yourself up, and then you're going to attend an HOA meeting where we will be discussing your behavior. Because, quite frankly, I think the board is going to have a lot of concerns about what's been going on. Karen's eyes widened in horror. You wouldn't dare. I would, Steve said simply. I could almost hear the screech of her brain short-circuiting. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, being investigated by her own committee. She looked like she wanted to scream, cry, and faint all at once. She whirled back toward me, her expression manic. You think you're so clever, don't you? She hissed. Well, let me tell you something. You haven't won. You think you've embarrassed me? This is nothing. I will not be made a fool of. You will regret this. I gave her a lazy shrug. I mean, I don't know, Karen. I feel like I've already won. Her eye twitched so violently that I thought she might explode all over again. Without another word, she stormed back inside, slamming the door behind her with enough force to shake the windows. Richard stood there for a long moment, staring at the door she had just vanished through. Then he turned back to me, exhaled through his nose and muttered, "I'm really sorry about this," before trudging back inside after her. The second the door shut, Jake's laughter exploded through the phone again. "Bro," he gasped, "that was the single greatest thing I have ever witnessed in my life." I grinned, glancing down at my phone where the footage of the whole event was still rolling. "Yeah," I said, "and it's about to get a lot better." Because Karen had no idea that not only had the footage already been uploaded, but within a few hours, it was going to spread. And once the internet got a hold of it, well, let's just say the world was about to meet Glitter Bomb Karen. The morning after the Glitter Bomb incident, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. The second I unlocked the screen, I nearly dropped it. The video had gone viral. Not just a few thousand views viral. Millions. My notification feed was flooded with likes, comments, and shares. The title I had given it, "Package Thief Gets Instant Karma, Caught in 4K, had clearly struck a chord with the internet. Jake called before I could even process it all, his voice already breathless with excitement. "Dude, are you seeing this? You've broken the internet. Karen is literally the main character of the day." I scrolled through the comments, and it was glorious. People were roasting her left and right. I've never seen karma work so fast in my life. Bro turned his neighbor into a walking disco ball. Pink and blue look great on her. 10 out of 10 fashion choice. Some people were even making memes, photoshopping Karen into supervillain posters, calling her the Glitter Goblin. Others had auto-tuned her scream into a remix that was already climbing in views. I was still scrolling when I heard a loud, furious pounding on my front door. "Karen." I took a deep breath, bracing myself. "Here we go." I opened the door, and there she was, eyes bloodshot, hair still streaked with faded pink and blue, and an expression that could curdle milk. If looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under, and still covered in glitter. "You," she snarled, her voice low and dangerous. I leaned against the door frame. "Morning, Karen. Sleep well?" Her nostrils flared. "Take it down now." I pretended to think about it. Let me see." "Nah." She let out a strangled screech, her whole body shaking. "You ruined my life. Do you have any idea what you've done? My phone won't stop ringing. My job. The video. My HOA board is getting emails demanding that I be removed. This is harassment." I tilted my head. "Oh, you mean like when you stole my packages and tried to blame me for it?" Her face twitched, but she wasn't backing down. "I could sue you for this. You invaded my privacy." I gave her a slow blink. "You stole something that wasn't yours from my porch, on my property, while being recorded on my security cameras. Then you got mad when the consequences hit you. Am I missing anything?" Her jaw clenched so hard I thought she might break a tooth. "You think this is funny?" "Yeah," I said honestly. She sucked in a sharp breath, fists trembling. "This isn't over. I am going to the police, and when I tell them what you did, you'll be the one in trouble." I shrugged. "Cool. Want me to send them the video too? I'm sure they'd love to see your confession in 4K. Her face turned an unnatural shade of red, and for a second, I thought she might actually explode like a second glitter bomb. But then she turned on her heel and stormed off, muttering something under her breath. Jake's voice crackled through my Bluetooth speaker. "Bro, that was brutal. I almost feel bad for her." I snorted. "Almost." Karen's threats backfire. Karen's threats would have been funny if she weren't actually insane. Because true to her word, she did call the cops. 2 officers showed up at my door later that afternoon, looking mildly confused as they asked if I had, in Karen's words, planted a dangerous booby trap meant to physically harm her. I sighed and invited them in. "All right, let's break this down." I pulled up the full unedited footage, starting from the very first package theft to the moment she took the bait. I even showed them my design process, proving there was no real harm, just glitter, dye, and stink spray. The officers exchanged looks, and I could tell they were trying not to laugh. When the video finished, the younger officer cleared his throat. "So, let me get this straight. She stole your package, opened it in her own home, got covered in glitter, and now she's reporting you for?" I shrugged. "Winning." The older cop exhaled through his nose, clearly done with everything. "All right, well, there's nothing illegal here. If anything, she's the one admitting to multiple thefts." I grinned. That's what I was thinking, too. The officers left, probably going to give Karen a strongly worded reality check. But the drama wasn't over yet. Karen doubles down and fails spectacularly. That night, Karen tried to fight back. Instead of apologizing or laying low, she doubled down. She made a Facebook post claiming to be the victim, saying I was a cyberbully who had ruined her reputation with fake videos and slander. But the internet wasn't having it. The comments were brutal. "Karen, do you think the security cameras made up the footage? This is literally the most Karen thing I have ever seen. Textbook behavior. I hope you enjoy being internet famous for the next 5 years." She tried to report my video, but YouTube denied her claim because, shocker, everything was 100% real. By the end of the day, she was trending on Twitter. Someone had even started a petition to ban her from ever being in an HOA again. The final blow. The fallout hit fast. She was removed from the HOA board. Her job, a cushy real estate gig, put her on indefinite leave due to public backlash. People even found old complaints about her from former neighbors. The next morning, she was nowhere to be seen. Jake and I sat on my porch, drinking coffee as we scrolled through the latest memes about her. "You think she's in hiding?" Jake mused. I sipped my coffee, probably plotting her revenge. "Think she'll try to steal another package?" I smirked. "I hope she does. I still have a few ideas left." We clinked our mugs together. The morning sun shone over a peaceful, Karen-free neighborhood for the first time in months. My porch was safe. My packages were safe. And best of all, the world would never let her forget this. Epilogue. The last stand, or so she thought. A day after Karen's failed attempt to call the cops on me, I expected her to lay low. Maybe reflect on her life choices. Maybe move to another state where no one knew her as the Glitter Goblin. But this was Karen. And Karen didn't know how to quit. I woke up to an email from the HOA, which was never a good sign. The subject line alone told me everything I needed to know. "Formal complaint filed against you. Urgent review required." I sighed and clicked it open. "Dear Mr. Ethan Parker, it has come to our attention that you have been engaging in activities that disrupt the peace and integrity of our community. Multiple reports have been filed regarding the use of hazardous devices, harassment of neighbors, and public defamation. Please be advised that failure to attend an urgent HOA review meeting may result in fines and further action. Karen." Again. I groaned and called Jake. "Guess what? She's trying to get me fined now." Jake burst out laughing. "Bro, does she never get tired?" "I don't think she has that setting," I muttered. "She's treating this like a war." "So what's the plan? You're going to fight fire with fire?" I leaned back, thinking. "No," I said slowly. "I'm going to do something worse." Jake perked up. "Oh, I like where this is going." The HOA showdown. An hour later, I walked into the HOA meeting, completely calm. Karen was already seated at the long table, arms crossed, lips pursed like she had spent the last few hours practicing her offended citizen face in the mirror. Steve, the HOA president, sat at the head of the table, looking exhausted before the meeting had even started. Karen immediately pounced. "I demand that Ethan be reprimanded for his behavior." she snapped. He has engaged in repeated acts of aggression toward me. I was attacked in my own home. My personal safety was violated. Steve rubbed his temples. Karen, you stole his package. That is not the point, she screeched. That is exactly the point, I said, setting my phone down in front of them. I have video evidence, multiple angles, a full timeline of events. And if you want to talk about community violations, let's talk about stealing from your neighbors. Karen paled. I was only taking them to make sure they were safe. Steve sighed. Karen, we had the police review the footage, and even they agreed you were in the wrong. You need to let this go. Karen's mouth twitched. She had expected this meeting to be her big victory, where she could spin her victim narrative and finally get me in trouble. But now, it was crumbling right in front of her. You're all against me, she whispered. Then her voice grew louder, shaking with anger. This is a conspiracy. You people just don't like me. You've been looking for an excuse to get rid of me. Steve exchanged a glance with the other board members. Karen, he said carefully, we've received over 30 complaints about you in the past year. This isn't a conspiracy. This is an intervention. Karen went rigid. Excuse me? Another board member, a woman named Linda, folded her hands. Karen, we have documentation of you harassing other neighbors, issuing false complaints, and creating a hostile environment. We were going to hold this meeting soon regardless. The package incident just sped up the timeline. Karen's face turned a deep shade of red. You're throwing me out? Steve sighed. We're removing you from the HOA board. You are no longer allowed to file complaints against other residents unless there is clear evidence of an actual violation. Karen's hands clenched into fists. She looked like she wanted to flip the entire table over. You can't do this to me. We already did, Steve said, sliding a paper toward her. Effective immediately. Karen's entire body trembled with rage. Her eyes darted between me, the board members, and the paper in front of her. And then, without warning, she shot up from her seat, knocking over her chair. You think this is over? She snarled. You think I'm just going to take this? I have connections. You haven't seen the last of me. With that, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her with enough force to shake the windows. The room was silent for a moment. Then Steve let out a slow breath. Well, he said, rubbing his temples, that was a disaster. Linda looked at me. Ethan, we appreciate your patience in dealing with this. If she causes you any more trouble, please document it and report it to us. I nodded. Will do. The final nail in the coffin. I left the meeting feeling victorious. The internet had already made her infamous. Now, she had lost her precious HOA power. This was the ultimate defeat for someone like her. Or so I thought, because 2 days later, she pulled one last stunt. At exactly 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened the door cautiously, half expecting Karen to be standing there with a lawsuit in hand. Instead, I found a small brown box sitting on my welcome mat. No return address. No label. Just a box. Jake, who was on speakerphone at the time, immediately said, Bro, do not open that. I grabbed a pair of tongs from my kitchen, carefully picked up the box, and carried it to my backyard. Jake was still yelling through the phone. It's a trap. It's her revenge. You're about to get glitter-bombed back. I placed the box on the grass and nudged the lid open with a stick. Nothing happened. No explosion. No glitter. Just a single piece of paper inside. I frowned and picked it up. One sentence was scrawled in jagged black ink. Enjoy the win while it lasts. This isn't over. I stared at it for a long moment, then burst out laughing. Jake groaned. Oh my God, she sent you a villain monologue in a box. I grinned, shaking my head. She really did. Karen had officially lost. But apparently, she wasn't ready to accept it. I had no idea what she was planning next. But one thing was certain. This wasn't the last I'd hear from her. The aftermath. A week had passed since the HOA meeting, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the neighborhood was peaceful. No passive-aggressive complaint emails. No sudden HOA violation notices stuck to my door. No missing packages. It was almost too good to be true. Karen had gone radio silent, and that made me suspicious. She wasn't the type to just give up. People like her didn't accept defeat. They regrouped, plotted, and came back swinging. Jake had the same thought when he called me that afternoon. "You think she's really done?" I glanced out my window, scanning Karen's house. The blinds were shut. The car was gone. And for once, it didn't look like she was lurking in her yard, waiting for an excuse to start a fight. "I don't know, man. It's weird. She hasn't even tried to file another complaint." Jake snorted. Maybe she finally realized she lost. I shook my head. "No way. She sent me a box with a warning letter. That's not a giving up move. That's a just wait and see move." Jake sighed. "Well, whatever she's planning, I doubt it's worse than getting glitter-bombed in front of the entire internet." That was the ultimate comic smackdown. I chuckled. Yeah, I don't think she's ever going to live that down. And I was right. Because even though Karen was laying low, the internet hadn't forgotten. The video had spread like wildfire. Reaction channels were covering it. Meme pages were still pumping out new edits of her freakout. Some YouTuber had even done a dramatic reading of the hate messages she had been leaving on random forums, ranting about how she was being digitally persecuted. She was famous, in the worst possible way. And that's when I realized why she had gone silent. She was trying to erase herself from the internet. It started with her deleting all her social media accounts. No more Facebook. No more Instagram. She even tried to scrub old posts from neighborhood groups, but screenshots had already spread too far. Then she stopped answering her door entirely, probably afraid of reporters or people looking to get an interview with the glitter goblin. Jake sent me a link later that day. "Dude, you're not going to believe this." I clicked it, and my jaw dropped. It was an article from a small local news site. HOA leader removed after viral glitter bomb video. Suburban drama caught on camera. Karen's meltdown had officially made the news. I read through the article, barely able to contain my laughter. They had included still frames from the footage, and the captions were merciless. One had a picture of Karen mid-scream, covered in dye, with the words "instant regret" underneath. Another had a quote from Steve, the HOA president, saying that Karen's behavior did not align with the values of the community. Jake was laughing through the phone. "Bro, this is next level. She's not just HOA infamous anymore. She's full-on statewide infamous." I ran a hand through my hair. "Dude, she's never going to be able to show her face anywhere again." But as satisfying as it was to see karma in action, I still didn't trust the silence. Then, late one night, I got my answer. The final stalker move. It was almost midnight when my doorbell rang. I frowned, setting down my laptop. Nobody came to my house this late. My first thought was Karen, but that didn't make sense. She had been avoiding me for days. I checked the security cam feed on my phone, and my stomach dropped. It was Karen, but she wasn't at my door. She was standing at the edge of my yard, in the dark, staring directly at my house. A chill ran down my spine. She didn't move. She didn't ring the doorbell again. She just stood there, unmoving, watching. I grabbed my phone and called Jake immediately. "Dude," I whispered, not taking my eyes off the screen. "Karen is outside." Jake yawned. "So, you said she'd come back eventually?" "No," I said, my voice low. "She's just standing there, not saying anything, not doing anything, just watching. Jake was fully awake now. Okay, that's creepy as hell. Yeah, I said. Called the cops? I considered it. But technically, she wasn't doing anything illegal. She wasn't on my property. She wasn't making threats. She was just there. After a few more minutes, she finally moved. Without a word, she turned and walked back toward her house, disappearing into the shadows. The second she was gone, I let out a breath I didn't even realize I had been holding. Jake's voice crackled through the phone. Okay, I take back what I said. She's totally going to try something. I ran a hand through my hair. Yeah, I muttered. And I have a feeling it's not going to be another HOA complaint. The last package. For the next few days, I stayed on high alert. Karen didn't show up again. But the feeling of being watched never went away. I knew she was still out there, planning something. Then, one morning, I walked outside to grab the mail, and found something new on my porch. It was a package, a plain brown box. No label, no return address. Just like the last time, Jake's voice echoed in my head. Do not open that. I stared at it, my gut twisting. This had Karen written all over it. I grabbed a broomstick and gently nudged the box. Nothing happened. No ticking. No movement. But that didn't mean it was safe. I decided to be smart about it this time. I grabbed a pair of gloves, lifted the box carefully, and carried it straight to my backyard. If this was another one of her stunts, I wasn't going to fall for it. I placed it on the ground, took a step back, and opened the lid with the broomstick. Inside, there was just a single note. I picked it up slowly, unfolding it. You may have won the battle, but the war isn't over. I exhaled sharply. Jake's reaction when I told him was exactly what I expected. Are you kidding me? She's still going after all this? I nodded. Looks like it. Dude, this woman is unhinged. What is her endgame? I had no idea, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Karen had lost everything. Her HOA power, her reputation, even her ability to walk through the neighborhood without people whispering behind her back. And yet, she wasn't letting go. I didn't know what she was planning. I didn't know when she'd try again. But I did know one thing. The next time she came for me, I'd be ready.